What started as a regular school day took a shocking turn when a known bully made the mistake of targeting none other than Princess Charlotte. In just 10 seconds, everything spiraled out of control, and what happened next left students and teachers frozen. Prince William, fiercely protective of his daughter, stormed in with a presence no one could ignore. The bully's smug confidence vanished instantly. But what exactly did William do that had the entire school buzzing? And why is this moment now sparking headlines across the royal world and beyond? A princess among peers. From the moment Princess Charlotte first walked through the polished gates of Lambrook School, she carried herself like any other child, her small hands gripping a book bag, her chestnut hair neatly tied back with a simple ribbon. Though she was dressed in the same navy blazer and pleated skirt as her classmates, she couldn't completely hide who she was. Whispers followed her down the hallways. That's the princess, the real one. But Charlotte only smiled shyly and kept walking. Teachers soon came to admire her quiet determination. Unlike what they'd expected from someone born into palaces and pageantry, she never demanded attention or privileges. She raised her hand politely in class, offered to help younger students find their lockers, and even volunteered to tidy up paintbrushes after art. "She's just Charlotte," one teacher said approvingly after the first week. "Humble, kind, easy to like." And for a while her classmates seemed to agree. Children invited her to sit at their lunch tables, asked her for help with spelling words, and even giggled when she joined in their playground games. Charlotte was careful to fit in, to laugh when the others laughed, to sit quietly when everyone else did, to make sure no one felt she thought she was better than them. But then came the new boy. He arrived one chilly morning in early autumn, swaggering down the corridor in scuffed shoes and a crooked tie, already radiating defiance. Jasper, or Ethan as some teachers called him, seemed to have decided long before, stepping through the doors, that this school, and everyone in it, belonged to him. And when his sharp eyes landed on Charlotte, they narrowed into something colder. He didn't see the kind, smiling girl who stayed behind to help others. He only saw her surname, her headlines, the deference others gave her, and to him, that made her the perfect target. At first, it was whispers. "Careful, everyone, make way for Her Majesty," whispered just loud enough for her to hear as she passed. Then it grew bolder. He accidentally knocked over her books in the hallway, or rolled his eyes, and muttered, "Of course she gets it right. She's royal." The other students noticed, but none spoke up. Some giggled nervously, others pretended not to see. Even the teachers caught glimpses of his smirk and her quiet flinch, but dismissed it as harmless teasing. What they didn't know was that this was only the beginning. And for Charlotte, the hallways were starting to feel much longer and much lonelier than she'd ever imagined. And if this was just the beginning, what did Princess Kate see behind Charlotte's fading smile? Keep watching. What Princess Kate saw. At home, the cheerful hum of the palace always seemed to embrace Charlotte. The long dining table glowed under golden chandeliers, the warmth of family laughter often filling the air during dinner. But lately, Kate noticed, her daughter's giggles were quieter, her shoulders just a little more slumped. It began with little things. Charlotte leaving the table early, claiming to have more homework. Her once bright chatter about school projects and playground games was replaced with vague answers and downcast eyes. When William asked how her day had been, she would smile faintly and murmur, "Fine," before retreating to her room. Kate, of all people, knew that fine rarely meant fine. One evening, as Charlotte sat at the far end of the table, picking at her peas rather than eating, Kate watched her carefully. The girl's ribbon had slipped loose from her braid, her fingers absently twisting the ends as though to distract herself. And when George cracked a joke, Charlotte barely even looked up. Later, Kate found her curled up on her window seat, sketchbook open, but untouched. "Lottie?" she asked softly, sitting beside her. "You've been quiet lately. Did something happen at school?" Charlotte shook her head immediately, too quickly, and forced a thin smile. "Nothing's wrong, Mummy. I'm just tired." But Kate's hand lingered on her daughter's back, feeling the tension there. And when Charlotte leaned slightly away, she caught the glimmer of something in her daughter's eyes. Not tiredness, but sadness. Kate didn't press. Not yet, but she kissed the top of Charlotte's head and said gently, "You know you can tell me anything, don't you?" That night, as Charlotte slept, Kate sat in her own room with William, her thoughts heavy. "She's not herself," she said quietly, staring at the dark window. "She's holding something back." William frowned, worry flickering across his features, but Kate's voice was steady. "I think it's at school. Maybe someone, or something, is making her unhappy." By morning, she had already made her decision. Without fanfare or headlines, she quietly asked one of the palace's trusted aides to reach out to the school. The instruction was clear, without creating a scene. The wheels began turning behind the scenes. A silent inquiry was set in motion, and the first whispers of Charlotte's hidden struggle finally reached ears that would not stay silent. Kate's instincts were rarely wrong, and this time, she vowed she would not let her daughter carry it alone. And as whispers reached royal ears, what quiet move did the palace make next? Stay tuned to find out. The palace responds. By the next morning, the quiet gears of the palace were already in motion. Kate's quiet conversation with William the night before had set off a chain of calls, emails, and meetings, all kept behind tightly closed doors. The family's priority was clear: protect Charlotte, but do so without creating a spectacle that might end up as tabloid fodder. The palace private secretary drafted the note himself, short, measured, but impossible to ignore. It was addressed directly to the headmaster of Lambrook School. "We write to express concern regarding reports of distress experienced by Her Royal Highness Princess Charlotte about her treatment by peers. We trust the institution shares our commitment to ensuring a safe and respectful environment for all students, and we would appreciate clarification as to the measures currently in place to address any incidents of undue attention or inappropriate behavior toward her. We look forward to your prompt and detailed response." The email arrived in the headmaster's inbox just after 7:30 a.m., before he'd even finished his morning tea. Reading the royal crest at the top of the message, his hands went cold and the cup rattled slightly as he set it down. Within the hour, he had summoned his deputy and the head of pastoral care into his office. The usually serene morning bustle of the school was replaced with an air of uneasy urgency among the staff. Even the receptionist noticed how pale the headmaster looked as he walked briskly across the corridor, clutching a printout of the palace's message. At their hastily convened meeting, the headmaster read the note aloud, his voice unusually tight. "We seem to have missed something," he admitted, glancing at his two colleagues. "We've been sent a direct query from Kensington Palace about Charlotte's well-being here, and it seems there have been incidents we've failed to address properly." The head of pastoral care shifted uncomfortably in her chair. "I've had concerns," she admitted, "but nothing formal had come across my desk. Some of the teachers mentioned teasing, but teasing that seems to have escalated." The deputy cut in grimly. "And if the palace is noticing, that means it's not just minor playground nonsense anymore." The headmaster straightened his tie and rubbed his forehead. "We need to get ahead of this, now." By noon, teachers were discreetly pulled aside and asked to document anything they'd observed involving Charlotte over the past weeks. Sticky notes on her locker, rude comments during gym. The head of guidance reviewed her own notes and realized she'd already seen troubling signs: Charlotte withdrawing, avoiding group activities, keeping her head down in the halls. They quickly arranged to speak with the boy at the center of the complaints. He arrived in the office, hands shoved defiantly in his pockets, still wearing that smirk he carried like armor. The headmaster looked him in the eye and spoke in a tone sharper than the boy had ever heard before. "You are being watched very closely. We've tolerated more than we should have. If this behavior continues, the consequences will be immediate and serious. Do you understand?" For the first time, the boy's grin faltered. He gave a quick nod, muttered, "Yes, sir," and left the office looking much smaller than when he'd walked in. The staff promised themselves they would monitor everything from now on. Doors were left ajar during classes. Hallway duty was doubled. Teachers exchanged quiet glances of determination. But though the school outwardly promised vigilance, the unsettling truth was already clear. The palace was watching them now, and failure was not an option. The school reacts. By the next day, the atmosphere at Lambrook was noticeably different. Teachers stood in doorways between classes, their watchful eyes scanning the corridors. The guidance counselor, Mrs. Rowan, lingered longer in the lunchroom than usual, pretending to arrange chairs while she kept a quiet eye on Charlotte and the boy who had drawn the palace's ire. The headmaster had made it clear at their morning staff meeting. This was no longer just an internal matter. "We've been warned," he said sternly, holding up the printed email from the palace. "If we fail to act, it won't just be an embarrassment. It could destroy this school's reputation. Every incident must be recorded, and every inappropriate word addressed on the spot. Is that understood?" Everyone nodded. Mrs. Rowan took it upon herself to speak directly to the boy later that morning. She found him in the library, slouched low in a chair, idly flicking through a comic book. "Walk with me," she said firmly. He followed her reluctantly to a quiet corner near her office. "You know why you're here?" she began, folding her arms. He shrugged. "I was just kidding. Everyone's so sensitive." Her gaze hardened. "This isn't a joke anymore. Do you understand how serious this is? You're being watched, not just by us, but by people who expect you to behave like a decent human being." The boy smirked faintly, though she could see the flicker of nervousness in his eyes. "Yes, ma'am," he muttered. But even as he left her office with a mumbled apology, Mrs. Rowan felt a nagging doubt. Something in his body language told her this wasn't over. And she was right. For a few days, he kept his distance, walking past Charlotte without saying anything, his hands shoved deep in his pockets. But by the end of the week, his mockery had returned, quieter this time, more calculated. Instead of loud insults, he left sticky notes inside Charlotte's desk. "Don't trip over your crown," or "Does your daddy fight all your battles?" He made sure to drop his comments just loud enough for her to hear, but not loud enough for the teachers to catch. In art class, he accidentally knocked over her paint jar, muttering a sarcastic, "Oops, guess I'm clumsy." In gym, he lagged behind her in the running line, whispering, "Don't worry, princess, I'll let you win." Charlotte kept her head down, but the strain was showing in the way she gripped her pencils too tight, in the way she avoided eye contact. The teachers continued documenting everything, and Mrs. Rowan began compiling a folder of incidents, ready for the headmaster should the palace demand proof. But it was becoming clear that the boys' bullying hadn't stopped. It had simply gone underground, and the longer it continued, the closer Charlotte came to her breaking point, and the closer the boy came to a reckoning he could never have imagined. But if the bullying never truly stopped, what finally pushed Charlotte to the edge and exposed everything? Don't look away now. When he lays hands on her. It was a gray Friday afternoon, the kind of day when even the walls of Lambrook seemed to sigh with exhaustion. Students gathered at the front gates in clumps, umbrellas sprouting like blossoms against the drizzle as buses lined up. Charlotte stood a few steps from the gate, her pink umbrella clutched in one hand and her school bag slung over her shoulder. Charlotte kept her head down, ignoring whispers and snickers all day. She longed to go home, escape into her sketchbook, but he wasn't done. From the corner of her eye, she spotted him lurking by the wall, flanked by his usual followers, their unease betraying that something darker was coming. Charlotte tightened her grip on her umbrella and took a deliberate step toward the line of buses. That's when he moved. He stepped in front of her, blocking her path. His smirk was back, but this time there was something sharper in it. Frustration, maybe, at being watched and warned all week. He leaned in, his voice low but audible enough to make her cheeks burn. "What? You're too good to even look at us now. You think your daddy's email scares me?" Charlotte didn't answer. She tried to step around him, but he reached out suddenly and grabbed her by the arm, not hard enough to hurt, but firm enough that she froze. "You're not better than us, princess," he hissed, his fingers tightening slightly. And then everything changed. There was a sound of footsteps behind them, sharp, purposeful, and then a voice, calm but cutting through the murmur of students like a blade. "Let go of her! Now!" The boy spun around, startled, and for the first time all year, his face lost its smugness entirely. Standing just inside the gate, towering over the crowd of students, was Prince William himself. He wasn't dressed in formal attire, just a simple coat and scarf, but his presence was undeniable. His blue eyes were fixed on the boy's hand, his jaw set. The children nearby fell silent, their whispers dying instantly. The boy's fingers slipped away from Charlotte's arm as though it had burned him. William stepped closer, his voice steady and even, but carrying an authority that made the air feel heavier. "You will never put your hands on her again. Do you understand?" The boy nodded mutely, his face pale now. William's gaze lingered a moment longer before he gently placed a hand on Charlotte's shoulder. She looked up at him, her lip trembling, but his reassuring smile steadied her. He had seen enough, and now the real reckoning was about to begin. William storms in. Minutes after the scene at the gate, the boy was summoned to the headmaster's office, his shoulders hunched as he walked the long corridor, the weight of a dozen eyes following him. Inside, the room was tense, the headmaster seated stiffly behind his desk, the guidance and counseling officer standing quietly to one side. But it was William who commanded the space. He stood near the window, arms folded, his expression composed but resolute. When the boy entered, William turned slowly, his gaze fixed squarely on him. "Sit," he said simply. The boy obeyed, his usual smirk replaced by a nervous flicker in his eyes. William didn't raise his voice. He didn't need to. His words were measured, but they carried a weight the boy had never felt before. "You may think what you did was just teasing," William began. "But I saw what you did. You put your hands on my daughter. You humiliated her, and you made her feel unsafe in a place where she comes to learn." The boy swallowed hard, staring down at his shoes. "I was your age once," William continued. "I know what it feels like to be angry, to feel like you don't fit in, to want others to notice you. But making someone else feel small does not make you bigger. It makes you cruel. And that is not strength." For the first time, the boy looked up, his defenses crumbling under William's calm but piercing gaze. "You owe Charlotte an apology. And more than that, you owe yourself better than this," William finished, his voice softening just slightly. The room was silent. Even the headmaster looked chastened. The boy gave a stiff nod, whispering, "I'm sorry." William studied him for a long moment before replying, "Good. Start showing it." The public finds out. By Monday morning, what had been a private matter between the palace and the school had spilled into the public eye. It started with a single tweet from a parent at the school, witnessed Prince William himself addressing a boy who grabbed Princess Charlotte at pickup on Friday. Calm, but powerful. The boy looked terrified. Respect. Within hours, the tweet had gone viral, gathering tens of thousands of likes and retweets. The hashtags began to appear almost immediately. Hashtag Protect Charlotte, hashtag Stand with Charlotte, and hashtag No More Bullying trended across the UK by lunchtime. News outlets picked up the story and began reporting it on their websites. Headlines blared, "Prince William intervenes after bullying, incident at elite school. Princess Charlotte targeted by classmate, palace steps. In. Royal parenting done right. William confronts bully, calmly but firmly." On morning television shows, pundits and parents alike weighed in. Some praised the palace for their measured response, while others questioned how such a situation could unfold unnoticed at one of the country's most prestigious schools. On social media, ordinary parents shared their own stories of children facing bullying, many saying Charlotte's experience had given them the courage to speak up. "If even a princess can be bullied," one user wrote, "then clearly no child is immune. Schools must do better." The pressure on the school mounted quickly. Journalists began calling the headmaster's office, demanding statements. Alumni wrote open letters expressing disappointment. Other parents at the school emailed complaints, asking what measures were being taken to prevent further incidents. Even international media picked up the story, with headlines appearing in the US, Canada, and Australia. The school released a short, formal statement late in the afternoon. "We are aware of recent concerns regarding one of our students and are actively addressing the matter. The well-being of all our students is of utmost importance." But the damage to their reputation was already done. By the end of the day, the entire country seemed to be watching, not just the boy who had bullied Charlotte, but the culture that had allowed it to happen. And with the nation watching, would this final assembly mark true change or just another polished performance to save face? Keep watching. A new beginning. The following week, the school gathered the entire student body in the main assembly hall. The air was thick with anticipation. Whispers bounced from row to row as students speculated about what would happen. At the front of the room stood the headmaster, the boy, and Charlotte, her chin slightly raised, calm but watchful. The headmaster began by addressing the room, his voice solemn but hopeful. "Today marks a turning point for our school," he said. "We must all remember that kindness and respect are not optional. They are who we are meant to be." Then he turned to the boy standing beside him. The boy's usual defiance was gone, replaced by a pale, quiet nervousness. He took a breath, looked at the floor, and spoke into the microphone. "I want to say, I'm sorry," he began, his voice shaky but audible. "I was wrong to treat Charlotte the way I did. I hurt her, and I hurt all of you by making this school feel less safe. I'll do better. I'm sorry to Charlotte and to everyone here." Though the room stayed silent at first, a few students nodded in quiet approval. The weeks that followed brought more change. The school announced a comprehensive anti-bullying program, complete with anonymous reporting channels, staff training, and regular student workshops on empathy and respect. Posters lined the hallways now. "Speak up, be kind, we stand together." As for Charlotte, she began to walk the halls with a renewed sense of confidence. Slowly, the shy smiles returned, and she no longer kept her eyes fixed on the floor. Other students, even those who hadn't spoken to her before, now greeted her warmly, some even stopping to apologize for not speaking up sooner. She became a quiet example of courage, showing that it was possible to endure hardship with grace and to forgive. Across the country, praise for William and Kate's calm yet firm intervention poured in. Editorials called it a masterclass in parenting and an example of leadership the nation can be proud of. And in the hearts of many children and parents who followed the story, Charlotte's resilience became a symbol of hope, proof that even in silence, strength can grow and kindness can win. But what do you think truly changed the school? The boy's apology, Charlotte's courage, or the palace's quiet power? We'd like to hear your thoughts in the comments. Don't forget to subscribe and share.